Microsoft Azure sponsoring our second class this week. Let's get into this. We got a lot of fun stuff tonight. We are walking through how to get auth added to our applications. Last class was kind of a catch up, making sure that we were all ready to go. We got a problem. Our problem was that our applications did not have authentication. So we've been able to build a really cool to-do list. We've been able to build out CRUD functionality, but we don't have logins yet. So when I say authentication, I mean like the ability for somebody to log into your application, because when users can log in, we can start to do some really cool things. We also have a second problem. And that second problem is I'm not a cybersecurity expert. I want to use off-the-shelf solutions to make my life way easier. And the reason why I want to use these solutions is because companies, they stay getting got. Think about all the companies whose usernames and passwords have been revealed recently, right? So companies stay getting got. Around here, we don't get got, we go get. Let that sink in for a second. Here's my database. That's what it looks like. We're using MongoDB Atlas, and this is what do you notice? What are you seeing here? This is for my users. So my app has multiple users. What are you noticing here? Yeah, I'm using Microsoft IDs here. Are there passwords in here? Nah, no passwords in here. Yeah, I still have the ability for folks to like use my application, log in. I can start serving them up. We're going to build this actually, serving them up specific things. The reason I'm able to do this is because of Microsoft's identity platform. So Microsoft has a full identity platform, and this identity platform is going to help us with our authentication, handling our logins, and they have everything under the sun. No matter what you want to do, whatever you want to do, they got you. And there's two really important pieces here. They have Azure AD, Active Directory. And this is really great for if you want to have like all the folks at your company or all the folks at your school being able to log in through one thing. And then the beautiful Azure Active Directory B2C. This enables you to target any of your consumers, not just folks in your own organization. So not just your work, your school. And it's beautiful because we ain't getting got. We're going to go get. We need some accounts. To build your applications with Azure AD, you're going to need an Azure AD account, which you can get an Azure account for free without a credit card by joining the Microsoft 365 Developer Program. You can use that, no credit card needed. And you could also use, if you want a code yesterday and you already have it in, it should be in your messages here on Twitch. You could use that code for just the regular Azure account and your stuff will be in there, but I recommend the Developer Program too. All right, so you're gonna need that account. So I'm gonna give some folks some time to get that account going. You're also going to need a MongoDB Atlas account if you're gonna follow along. And the beautiful thing about MongoDB Atlas is that you can use Azure, which is so cool. I'll share the code. The code was in the follow along materials. So if you need the code, it is in the follow along materials channel. I'll put the links up to the code in the slides in just a second. But let's go ahead and start our server here. And I'm gonna grab my lovely Microsoft password here, and I am going to open up a new window. We always run our stuff on localhost 212121. Let's go ahead and click our new to-do list button. I'm going to use my email that I used to create my Azure account, and look at me go. I'm logged in. So that was cool. I'm logged in. I removed the code that just shows my to-dos. But you do see some cool stuff here. Leon Noel is there. The cool thing is I can go back to that main page. I can go back to to-dos, and it works. The really cool thing is I can log out And then once I am logged out, I can't get back there. I'm no longer logged in. We got some authentication, folks. I can log in. I can start to do some cool stuff. I can log out. I'm getting some profile information that my users didn't give me that's coming from Microsoft. All right, so let's make it so you can code along. First, you're going to need the codes. So for right now, you can use this repo, and you click on this link, it'll take you to the repo. This is the repo without the secret stuff that we're going to need from Azure, but all of the files that you need. The original one that I gave you all yesterday, I had hidden my environment files and this config file that we're going to need. So this repo on top has everything, and you're just going to have to plug in a few things that we talk about. And it has all my modifications and stuff in it as well. So let's do Mongo Atlas just in case you need it, in case you're watching this later. Let me sign in. Once you are logged into MongoDB, you are going to create a cluster. That's what we're going to be needing. So we're going to create a cluster. We're going to use Azure. Pick a server that's nearest to you and click on Create Cluster. And then once you're done creating a new cluster, you'll get plopped onto a screen that looks like this. I'm going to show you an older one that we have here. You're going to have to create a user and a password for that user. Can we just do a new project underneath this cluster? Yeah, let's try that. Let's try a new project on this cluster. This is the same thing. All right, yeah, there we go. Cool. We'll just do a new project instead of a new cluster. I was trying to show it all the way from the beginning, but it doesn't matter. The cluster you just create, and then it plops you over here. Project name, demo. I'm just going to use my current owner. I'm not going to create a new one. Nice. There we go. Cool. The other one, delete it, and we're good. All right, so we're going to let this run. Not gonna lie, I'm lost. Don't worry, pals. Don't worry. You can always come back and watch this piece here. If we've been doing this for a long time. This is our class 39. This is just for if you're watching it back on like YouTube or something. You have the process here, but all it is just creating a new cluster, right? And then creating the account here, and that's it. This will take a few seconds. And while we're letting this take a few seconds here, let's go ahead and set up our Azure AD. Let's go ahead and I'm going to go to my Azure account, and you want to navigate to Azure Active Directory. That's where you're trying to get to. You can either search for it, and then once you're here, there is a link, this link right here, this Azure AD link. It gives you all the step-by-step details. So if I go too fast, or you're watching this after class and you want like all the details in just text format, you can click that link. Once we're in Azure AD, we're gonna just work through kind of registering our application. And so we're logged in, we're going to Azure Active Directory. You can see we're in Azure Active Directory. And once we are here, we are going to go to the Manage section. And then once we're in Manage, we're looking for app registrations. If it's asking for a credit card, you probably didn't do the Microsoft 360 developer account. Let's click on app registrations. And I'm just going to do a new registration. You can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it demo. And I am going to select the accounts in any organizational directory. So anything that's in Azure AD and anything that's like a personal Microsoft account. All right, so I have my account all set up. I click the link that I want. There's a register button right behind my big head, and I clicked it. We created demo. Once we have it created, we got one of the things that we need, which is our client ID. And we'll talk about this in a second, but one of the things we're gonna need is that client ID. I don't like dragging it for some reason. I like doing the funny like lean over. So I have the application demo. Sorry, I have the client ID here that I'm gonna need. And the next thing I wanna do is I need to go to Manage and then Authentication. And so I'm gonna click on that authentication. And once I'm here in authentication, I'm going to add a platform, and the platform I'm going to use is web. When I choose the web platform, I need a redirect for the application. Mine is going to be 2121 because that's the port I'm going to be running my app on. If your port was running on 3000, you'd be good, but it's on 2121 for our app, so that's what I put it as. And then the front channel logout URL is the same thing. All right, put my front channel login URL. And what I am going to use is I am going to select ID tokens. Gotta put HTTPS here. And I'm going to configure. Now we're going to go to client certificates and secrets. And once we're in client certificates and secrets, we're going to make a new client secrets. So I'm just going to give it a name, demo, close your eyes, expires 3 months. And then down here is the actual secret that I'm going to need. And so I can use that secret for my application. Let's go back to Mongo Atlas and see how we're doing. All right, we're good. So we're in Mongo Atlas, we're good. We're going to do connect, and I'm going to add my current IP address. And I'm going to create a database username and password, just demo and demo. And there you go. So I've created my connection. I'm going to choose my connection method, and I'm going to click on connect your application. Here's the link that you're going to need inside of your environment files. So I'm going to show you my environment file. My link that you're going to see in the environment file is tied to my IP address. So even if you have it, you can't use it, but you are going to replace this right here. You replace that right there. But that's what we're going to use to connect to our database. In your Azure AD, you're going to need your client ID and the secret. So you're going to take your client ID and your secret, and there are going to be 2 slots inside this config.js file. Everything else in here, I've customized a few things in here, but that's what you're going to do. Alrighty. Authentication, logged in users. How? What's happening? How did all that work? Well, we are going to use Passport.js for all of this magic. We are going to use a strategy from Azure Active Directory called Passport Azure AD. It is actually a collection of strategies that are going to enable us to use Azure AD for our authentication. It's beautiful. You don't have to do the work. Don't do the heavy lifting, and you get all the goodies that we talked about earlier in stream. This strategy that we're specifically using is it's sitting on top of some really good open source software, and it's sitting on top of something called the OpenID Connect protocol. All right, let's read this. Let's get into it. OpenID Connect is a simple identity layer on top of OAuth 2.0 protocol. All you need to know here is that this is some serious open source code that's going to enable us to do these authentication. The really cool thing is that Microsoft AD works really well with it, and the strategy we're going to use comes out the gate with it. It allows clients to verify the identity of an end user based on the authentication performed by an authorization server. Azure AD Active Directory is going to be our authentication server. And so the cool thing about using Microsoft Identity as our authorization server is that we can obtain basic profile information about the end user in a system that enables us to share data between different computer systems. All right, so we're sharing data between this authorization server and our client. And if we know REST, we know how it works. So all this is saying is that the stuff that we're sitting on top of will make a request to Microsoft, and Microsoft will give us back some profile information. And it'll be just like any of the APIs that we've used so far. That's it. Let's see obtaining the basic profile information in action. So let's go ahead. Let me, all right. So we're starting up our server. All right, let me bring up my code here. Well, my site here, localhost, and we're gonna do 2121. Let's go ahead and click our button. We're gonna log in. We're gonna sign in with our password, and let's go back and look at our terminal here. Look at all this stuff I got back. I got all this stuff back from Microsoft, right? I got my username, my name, my preferred username. and all the info that Microsoft had on me. And so that's pretty cool. So I was able to make a request to Microsoft's authorization server, and they gave me back the goods. And so here's the passport file. Here's everything in this file. All of our data is coming from our config file that I showed you earlier. Like all of these things are being plugged in from that config file. When we got the information back, we were able to grab it. So I was able to grab my Microsoft ID from that data, and I was able to grab my display name. So if we look at the data they gave us, right, I was able to grab this OID, which is the unique ID that Microsoft has for identifying me. And I was able to grab the display name that Microsoft had on file for me. I was able to use that data to see if there was a user in my database that had that Microsoft ID. Because if there was, great, we just moved on with our day. But if there wasn't a user in my database that had that Microsoft ID match, we went ahead and created a new user. And I pulled out their Microsoft OID, and I pulled out my display name from Microsoft. Let's talk about what's happening here and why we need that file. All right, so if our user was not logged in, we kicked them over to Azure Active Directory. It's kicking us over to our authentication server, our authorization server, our Azure AD, right? It's bringing us over. Once we get there, we ask them to log in. And once we log in, we ask them to agree to some permissions. And once they agree to some permissions, gives us the goods, the good stuff. Here's the goods. They gave us our Microsoft ID that we can use to keep track of the actual once we're authenticated by Microsoft, that's how we're keeping track of the actual user that logged in. They also gave us our name, our preferred username. We could have used all of that on our end to build out our application. We're going to take that ID, that OID that Microsoft gave us, and we're going to use it to identify our logged in user. And so once I'm able to do that, you can look at my database and you can see that I stored the IDs that I got back from Microsoft. And so this is how I'm going to know which one of my users are logged in currently based off of that ID that Microsoft gave me in the goods. Now, one of the things that we saw was that our user had the ability to stay signed in. Let me show you. Let me show you how I was able to stay logged in. Grab my password. All right, server's running. Let me go catch it. And shift new, localhost. We're gonna do 2121. All right, let's log in. resilientcoders.org. All right, so I'm able to log in. I'm able to refresh. I'm able to go back to a different page. I'm able to come back to the to-dos. So my server stopped. Let me refresh. Let me start up my server again. Let me come back, go back to the main. Let's go to to-dos. Whew! I was able to stay logged in after refreshing, jumping around, stopping my server, restarting my server. I'm still logged in. Ooh, that's fancy. Now that our users are logged in, let me show you why it matters. We can have routes that are protected, meaning that only logged in users can hit it, right? So we know that they can only get to to-dos if they are logged in. We saw that. So we can get that information about who the logged in person was. And we know we can hide routes. We can get some information. And now our minds just start percolating a little bit. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, let me log out. Let me log out. Let me go ahead and go to to-dos. Can't get there. Got. Can't get in, can't go to to-dos because I logged out. That's Azure Auth, baby. That's what enabled us to have those protected routes. The ensure auth is what enabled us to have those protected routes, right? To be able to say, all right, only if you're logged in can you go to to-dos. Alrighty, so we are in our site. Christos here behind their monitor. They use their browser. To make a request to our server. The request first hits our router. And the cool thing is that there's two really important pieces of code that make up our router. We are trying to get to the to-dos route. So when we typed in localhost 2121/to-dos, we were trying to get to that to-dos route. We have a routes file that says, all right, you're trying to get to the main to-dos route. Let's make sure you are logged in with ensure auth. And then if you are logged in, we're going to go ahead and call our get controller. That request, right, gets passed to the controller. The controller can either talk to our views or it can talk to our model. The controller, right, can either talk to our views or it can talk to our model. And in this case, we're trying to show our to-dos. And since we're trying to show our to-dos, it's going to talk to the model. Exactly. And our model knows how to talk to our database. We can get all of our to-dos, right, that are in the database. And then once the model sends those to-dos back to the controller, what's our controller going to do with all that data after we got it back from the model? It's going to fly that data off to the views. The views is going to use it. We're going to take all that data that we got from our lovely model. We're going to pass it into our views. Now our controller has the HTML. It gets the HTML and responds to the browser with that HTML. If we got logged in users, what can we dream up? If we have a logged in user, we don't have to let our dreams be dreams. We can go ahead and build an application that only shows the to-dos of the folks that are logged in. Let's go back to our code here. What can I do here to grab just the to-dos of the logged in user? Let's look at our database real quick. I got two distinct users here. I can see that. That's cool. So we can distinguish our users, as we mentioned earlier, based off of this Microsoft ID property. But how can I get that property here? And with every request, we're sending this info, which is all the info of the logged in user. So whoever's logged in, every single request I make, I'm passing this around because my session is active. So let's go ahead and use it. Do just an object here, and we're just going to say Microsoft ID, and we're going to pass in rec.user.microsoft ID. And so this is going to pull that Microsoft ID off of the logged in user whenever we make a request to our to-dos page. So that's going to get all the to-dos. So cool. We're able to grab just the to-dos of the logged in user. So we're only getting one instead of two now, but we still have another problem. The count is off because it's grabbing all of them. It's counting all of them that are left to do. What can we pass through to make sure we're just getting our to-dos that are left? Yeah, we can do the same thing that we did up here. Just grab this, yoink. Boop. Oh, I did it outside, my bad. Boop. Cool. Let's save that. 10-second warning. Let's go. That's pretty neat. Who thinks that's pretty neat? I think that's pretty neat. It's not too much. We talked through a lot of stuff tonight, but it's not too wild. Like, you can do this. And now you have a template to use, right? You can just use this code. I'm going to push it as soon as class is over, and you can use it, right? And so you can get this set up, you can get it working, and it will do, you can build any type of app you want now. You have it. You have the skills.